The world is full of various martial arts. While their techniques and heritage may be different, they're all connected by the word martial, meaning relating to fighting and war. While there are various reasons a person may start martial arts for, most people start it wanting to learn how to protect themselves, yet too often they're promised something that they never really learn, even after years of training. Hi, my name is Rokas, and in this martial arts journey video, I will share my story how I learned that various martial arts don't work the hard way. I was always fascinated by Eastern culture, especially the samurai and the way of the warrior. It was only a matter of time for me to start learning martial arts. I was also pushed to learn martial arts for self-defense by surrounding circumstances. My country Lithuania was still freshly out of the Soviet Union, which gave space for crime organizations to thrive between all of the confusion, and the younger generation was quick to copy them by searching for easy prey to harass, beat up, or mug. As I was a peaceful teenager hanging out with other like-minded kids, various gang wannabes often chose me and my friends as their targets. I had countless of friends who have been victim to having their mobile phones mugged by other kids of similar age, and this danger was always very active for me as well. Having no desire to harm anyone though, yet wanting to protect myself and others, I was naturally drawn to Aikido, which promised the ability to protect myself and others without using extreme violence. While I was fascinated by the philosophy of Aikido, one of the main priorities for learning it for me initially was for self-defense. My first Aikido instructor mixed his classes with some Kyokushin basics and traditions such as push-ups, endurance training, punching the bag, and more. He also often spoke about street fighting, yet he never really gave any advice how to act in an actual self-defense situation. The training was also very much technique focused, and there were no live sparring or pressure testing during it. We're promised that by learning the techniques until perfecting them, that when the time will come, they will kick into action. Despite this promise, all the time while training, I had doubts about my ability to defend myself. Yet believing in my instructor's promise, I decided that in order to beat this doubt, I just needed to train more of the same. Thus, I started training not only with teenagers, but with adults too, around 7 times per week of regular classes. I was also often doing extra training with my friends. To boost my confidence, I asked them to punch harder and resist more while I did my techniques. Yet even when there was more resistance, it was still actually cooperative training as my partners were throwing specific attacks and their resistance consisted only of stiffening up to not allow a specific technique rather than offering live resistance which would teach me to adapt. Meanwhile, I was constantly harassed and threatened in the streets, very often by various gang wannabes. Fortunately, most of the times I was able to talk my way out of the situations or to find a creative solutions. Not that I was taught that in my Aikido classes, yet one time the circumstances happened to be worse. I was approached by a group of 5 young guys who stood around me and asked for my mobile phone, which was actually very expensive at the day. As their leader grabbed me on my collar and demanded my phone, no Aikido techniques came to me at the moment, despite my training being focused mostly on grabs. All that came to my mind was to randomly punch the guy in the back of the head. As the punch landed, he lost balance and collapsed on the ground. Meanwhile, the other guys started screaming and yelling at each other in panic, since they clearly did not see this coming. Looking back at the day, I'm upset that no one told me that the best option right there was to run away. Instead, being a martial artist, I stood there to fight them. Unfortunately again, instead of being proactive and using the chance to attack them, I stood there waiting for their attacks as I was taught in Aikido. At the same time, I observed how my mind froze with considerations of how will I know which specific technique to apply to which attack. Will I know the right technique for the right movement? Have I learned it? As I stood there lost in my inner dialogue, the gang got back their posture and instead of throwing an attack, they sprayed pepper spray into my face. Luckily enough, at this moment, I did realize that I have to run, and so I did. Barely seeing where I'm running amidst trees, with my eyes and mouth burning from pepper, I did finally manage to reach a store where I asked for help. As I came back home, I was confused and did not realize what went wrong. After speaking to my Aikido instructor and hearing his thoughts, I was suggested that I simply lacked enough training and that I needed to train even more and longer to learn more techniques for every possible occasion until they will naturally become active in a self-defense situation. Yet again, having faith in my instructor, I started training more Aikido, but this time I also decided to try something else. On my personal contemplations, I came to a conclusion that I am missing striking skills. Still being inspired by Eastern culture, I did not choose boxing, but I decided to start training Wing Chun instead, alongside my Aikido training. I trained Wing Chun like crazy as well. Also, encouraged by me, a group from our Wing Chun class even started a camp in a forest where we trained extra for hours almost daily. Yet again, Our training was focused on specific, static form, and even if we did light sparring, we would only include the traditional techniques of Wing Chun that we were taught, as we offered little live resistance to each other. During the time, I also looked into Kendo and Karate to fill in my gaps, and although I did not train much of it, everywhere I went, I was also encouraged to focus on polishing static techniques with the promise that one day they will come to work. As no one taught me proper strategy or mentality suitable for real-life self-defense, I started creating my own strategy as I prepared for the next encounter. I decided that the next time someone will try to mug me, and I was sure this is going to happen soon due to the circumstances of the crime activity in my city, I will punch them so hard to the face that I will knock them out. To make sure that happens, I started hitting the heavy bag at home every day for hours upon hours to develop a killer punch. Eventually, the day to test-proof my strategy and new skills came. As I was walking to school, I saw two guys standing on the other side of the road looking at me. The third of them was standing on my walking side, and as I came close to him, he stood up in front of me and demanded me to give him my mobile phone. Yes, it was a very popular thing to do in my city at the day. My brain quickly connected the dots of what was happening, and my planned strategy came into action. As my punch landed on his face, all that happened though was him taking a step back and starting to swear. As I realized my plan did not work out, no other techniques came to me at the moment, and I just ran away. Looking at it back now, I see that running away after landing a punch was actually a good decision to make, yet that was not something that my martial arts instructors managed to encourage me to do. Also, yet again, I was exposed to a situation where all the techniques I collected and tried to perfect still did not come into action, and thus I was left to continue to search for answers in futility, believing that the issue was with me not training enough rather than the martial arts and instructors that I learned from. Only the years later, I was introduced to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which suddenly showed me a new door. As I rolled with a fully resisting partner, of course, none of my Aikido or Wing Chun techniques came to me as well, yet during my first rolls, I witnessed how powerful the applied techniques were. As I started investigating into where that power comes from, I learned about such terms as pressure testing, alive drilling, constant rolling, and more. I quickly saw the differences in the training methods, and I started to realize that it was not actually my fault that I was not able to apply what I learned in my training, but it was how I was taught to do it. Of course, this is not to say that BJJ is a complete martial art, yet the training methods that it offers, amongst other similar types of combat practices, offers completely different results than entirely compliant training of very limited and traditional techniques in static conditions. Later on, I was also introduced to self-defense concepts and the difference between martial arts and self-defense, which also opened up great doorways to understand where my past issues come from. Whether a martial art works or not does depend on what you want it to work for. It may be a great tool for personal development or a means to fitness and education. Yet the word martial in its description implies that it should develop effective skills meant for fighting, at least as a side component. Unfortunately, most martial arts never expose themselves to enough pressure testing and alive drilling to witness the flaws behind some of the ideas of how it should work and why for someone it did not work. Many of them simply keep on polishing their techniques with compliant partners in hopes that one day it will apply under live circumstances and may spend years doing so. Also, too often martial arts schools fail to address the difference between martial arts and self-defense and to teach effective strategies to deal with conflict instead of indirectly encouraging students to expect to defend themselves physically in all situations. Of course, different martial arts have this issue on different levels, based on how it's trained. Judo and some styles of karate, for example, do offer much more pressure testing than many other martial arts such as kung fu or ninjutsu. Also, some schools do have separate classes for their martial art and actual self-defense. Yet this consideration of what the martial art promises and whether does it really deliver it is very important for all practices. While sharing my personal story, I hope it did help shed some understanding of what is implied the next time you will hear someone saying that martial arts don't work.